Welcome, boys. The second part of your history, class 6. The name of the topic is From Hunting, Gathering to Growing Food. Boys, in our previous part of the chapter, you have learned the earliest people, why were they on the move, how do we know about these people, then choosing a place to live in. So far, we have learned this. Uh, Now, let us continue. Page number 15. Sites. In some places, we got boys sites. Site means here what? Let us see. Sites are places where the remains of things, tools, pots, buildings, etc. were found. If anybody asks you what are sites, you have to say like this. Sites are places where the remains of things, tools, pots, buildings, etc. were found. These were made, used, and left behind by people. Those people, they used them, they made them, and left behind by them. These may be found on the surface of the earth, buried under the earth, or sometimes even underwater. So, this thing that means these remains, we may find them on the surface of the earth or under the earth, which is buried, which is covered by mud, or sometimes even underwater also. You will learn more about different sites in later chapters, the chapters which we are going to learn afterwards. In the chapters, you will learn about them, about the different sites. So now let us see finding out about fire. Fire, to find that fire, let us see how they find fire. Fire which we are using for burning purposes and for our different works, say for cook our food like that. So let us see finding out about fire. Finding the kernel caps on map 2, page number 13. Boys, please turn over. Let us see page number 13. Here, you have to see kernel caps. So kernel caps, you can, I think you can see in the map. It has given this kernel cap on map 2 in page number 13. Traces of page number 13. Okay, now let us back to the part of the chapter, page number 15. Traces of ash have been found here. Traces means find or discover after investigation. Okay, this S means after burning, say wood, or that means paper, we used to get ash. So these S have been found here in that kernel caps. This suggests that people were familiar with the use of fire. So to find that S, it suggests us what? Those people of during those days, they were familiar, they were well known. Familiar means well known with the use of fire. How fire was used, they know it. Fire could have been used for many things. Fire, it could be have been used for different purposes, such as a source of light, to roast meat, and to scare away animals. So for lighting a dark place or dark area, dark room, and to roast meat, and to fear away animals in order to save or remain far away from animals. Fire were used. Boys, you see under that names and dates as given, what do we sorry, what do we use fire for today? For what purposes we are using fire today? That you can write, is it not? uh, for example, for cooking and for heating, for boiling, etc. You can write. So here under boys, names and dates as given. You can read yourself this names and dates which has given and some terms has given. You read it. Let us turn over the next page. That is page number 16. A changing environment, changing the surrounding areas. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in the climate of the world with a shift to relatively warm conditions. So, around 12,000 years ago, boys, there were major changes took place in the climate of the world. So, in that changes, with a shift to relatively warm conditions, so the world had started becoming warmer. In many areas, this led to the development of grasslands. As a result of warming that areas, the development of grasslands occurred there. This in turn led to an increase in the number of deer, antelope, goat, sheep, and cattle, that is, animals that survived on grass. So, as uh, it become warmer, that's why an increase in the number of deer, antelope, goat, sheep, cattle, that is, animals that survived on grass, they were found. They increased in their number, increased in huge number. Okay, survived. Those who are, that means survived. Those who are living on grasses, those who are feeding on grasses, they are called animals that survived on grass. Those who hunted these animals now followed them, learning about their food habits and their breeding seasons. Those who used to hunt these animals, now they followed them, learning about their food habits, what are the food they are eating, and their breeding seasons and the seasons when that means they used to breed. It is likely that this helped people to start thinking about herding and rearing these animals themselves. Okay, it is likely that this helped people in order to think about domestication, herding and rearing these animals themselves. Fishing also became important. So fishing to catch fish, it also became important. The beginning of farming and herding, starting of say agriculture and starting of say keeping animals like that. Let us see. This was also a time when several grain bearing grasses, including wheat, barley, and rice, grew naturally in different parts of the subcontinent. So, this was also a time when different grain, it may be say uh, rice, wheat, pulses, mustard seeds like that, bearing grasses, but here not those It means here bearing grasses. Several grain bearing grasses, including wheat, barley, and rice, grew naturally in different parts of the subcontinent. They used to grew naturally. They used to grow themselves without any human aids in different parts of the subcontinent. Subcontinent means a large, distinguishable part of the continent. In your later on classes, you will learn what are subcontinent, why is India called a subcontinent. Boys, men, women, and children probably collected these grains as food and learned where they grew and when they ripened. So, men, women, and children, most probably, they collected these grains as food. They used to collect, means developing day by day, boys. Earlier, they used to kill animals, hunt animals, and depend on animals or roots or leaves of the trees. Here you see a little bit changes it comes. Men, women, and children probably collected these grains as food and learned where they grew and when they ripened, when they become mature to eat. Or when they mature, that means for plucking. This may have led them to think about growing plants on their own. This may it help them to think about the growing plants on their own. In this way, people became farmers. Now, here we learn that in such way, people they became farmers. Now, farming they learn how to farm. Okay, how to grow crops. They have learned. People could also attract and then tame animals by leaving food for them near their shelters. So, people they attract and then they start to domesticate animals, to tame animals by leaving food for those animals near their houses, shelters, or homes, near their homes. The first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestors of the dog. So, dog was the first animal to be tamed. It was the wild ancestor of the dog. Later, people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps where they lived. So, they inspire. Encourage means inspire. Later, these people they inspire animals that were relatively gentle without any fear to come near the camps where they were living. Okay. These animals, such as sheep, goat, cattle, and also the pig, lived in herds, and most of them ate grass. So these animals, like as sheep, goat, cattle, and also pig, they lived in group, herd. Herd means group, and most of them ate grass. These animals used to eat grasses. Often people protected these animals from attacks by other wild animals. So people always, that means they used to protect these animals from the attack of other wild animals. Powerful or strong, other powerful or strong animals used to catch them or kill them. So people used to protect them from those animals. This is how they became herders. So thus people they become herders. We have learned how they became farmers. We have learned how they became herders. So slowly and slowly their lifestyle began to progress. Can you think of any reasons why the dog was perhaps the first animal to be tamed? So in the answer you can say, boys, It is because it is a smaller in size. Okay, it is a smaller animal in size and could be easily kept. Another point you can say, it is an intelligent animal. Dog is an intelligent animal. Now let us proceed to the next page. Domestication. Domestic animals, you see, they began to domesticated animals. Domestication is the name given to the process in which people grow plants and look after animals. See, it means it is the process in which people grow plants and look after animals. Very often, plants and animals that are tended by people become different from wild plants and animals. Uh, Here, what happen? Very often means always, plants and animals that are regularly or frequently behave in a particular way by people uh, become different from wild plants and animals. This is because people select plants and animals for domestication. It is because of people they used to select plants and animals for their domestication. For example, they select those plants and animals that are not prone to disease. That means which do not affect of disease. By eating those none of the animals used to fall sick. For that reasons, they select those plants and animals. They also select plants that yield large size grain and have strong stalks capable of bearing the weight of the rib grain. They also used to select plants which can give large size grain, good qualities grain, and have strong stalks and branches like that. Okay, capable of bearing the weight of the rib grain, which can capable means able of bearing, holding the weight of the rib grain. Seeds from selected plants are preserved and shown to ensure that new plants and seeds will have the same qualities. So seeds from selected plants means good qualities seeds they used to collect and preserve it in order to sow it, to ensure that new plants, in order to get new plants and to get good harvest, they used to select good seeds will have the same qualities. Amongst animals, those that are relatively gentle are selected for breeding. So among all the animals, those are relatively gentle, they are selected for breeding. As a result, gradually domesticated animals and plants become different from wild animals and plants, and that's why domesticated animals and plants become different to compare with the wild animals and plants. For example, the teeth and horns of wild animals are usually much larger than those of domesticated animals. Boys, you must remember it. The teeth and horns of wild animals are most probably much larger than those of domesticated animals. Look at these two sets of teeth, which which is given here. Which do you think belongs to a wild pig and which to a domesticated one? Easily you can find out that, which I have already cleared in the above paragraph. Domestication was a gradual process that took place in many parts of the world. Domestication to domesticate. It was slowly. It was a that means gradual process that took place in many parts of the world. It began about 12,000 years ago. Domestication, it began about 12,000 years ago. Virtually, uh, virtually means nearly or almost, okay. all the plants and animals produce that we use as food today is a result of domestication. So almost all the plant and animal produce that we use as food today, this is a result of domestication. With the help of domestication, we are mostly get it. Some of the earliest plants to be domesticated were wheat and barley. So earliest plants, some of the earliest plants which to be domesticated were wheat and barley. The earliest domesticated animals include sheep and goat. Earliest domesticated, see here, boys, plants, then earliest domesticated animals. You must know it, underline it, and know it, okay? So, earliest domesticated animals include sheep and goat. Let us see under a new way of life. Now, boys, see, as people they came to know, they learn farming, herding, domestication. Now, it changes in the life of people. It observe. So, a new way of life. Let us see. If you plant a seed, you will notice that it takes some time to grow. Suppose a seed you have planted, you will you will notice that it takes some time in order to grow. This may be for several days, weeks, months, and in some cases years. So to grow as a plant, it may take several days or weeks or months or even uh, some years also. When people began growing plants, it meant that they had to stay in the same place for a long time, looking after the plants, watering, weeding, driving away animals and birds till the grain ripened. So uh, we find when people they started growing plants, it means uh, people need what they need. They had to stay in the particular place, in the same place where they have grown for a long time, by looking after the plants, watering, weeding. Weeding means removing of unwanted plants from there. Okay, that is called weeding. Driving away animals and birds till the grain ripened. So until and unless the grain is ready to harvest, they have to look after that. And then the grain had to be used carefully. And after that, the grain had to be used in a careful manner. Let us turn over the page, the next page, that is page number 18. As grain had to be stored for both food and seed, people had to think of ways of storing it. So, grain as it required uh, for us, so it need to be stored for both food and seed. People had to think of ways of storing it. So now, how to store it, to make godowns, to keep it, that is also needed. In many areas, they began making large clay pots with mud. Clay means uh, that wet mud. Okay, so people they began to make large clay pots or baskets or dug pits into the ground. So either by making clay pots or baskets, by woven baskets, or by digging pits into the ground, they used to store there. Do you think hunter-gatherers would have made and used pots? Give reasons for your answer. This one also you find out, boys. Now let us see, as they need to store it for their uses. Let us see, storing animals also has given here, boys. Animals multiply naturally, means increased naturally. Besides, if they are looked after carefully, they provide milk, which is an important source of food, and meat whenever required. So, animals, uh, apart from that, means they multiply naturally, we find. If we look after them carefully, they will provide us with milk, and milk, as you know, it is an important source of food. And by the way, meat also, whenever it is required. In other words, animals that are reared can be used as a store of food. So, in other ways, we find that, in other words, animals that are reared, people kept, that can be used as a store of food. Apart from food, what are other things that could have been obtained from animals? Apart from that, means food, what other things that could have been obtained from animals? You can, that means, right, boys, the uses of animals other than food. What are animals used for today? That means, for what purposes we are using animals today. You have to write. You can write it. Finding out about the first farmers and herders. To find about the first farmers. Farmers means cultivators and herders. Again, boys, turn to map 2, page 13. You will notice a number of blue squares. Let us see. Turn your page number 13, and there you will notice a number of blue squares. Blue squares, I think you can see here, boys. Say blue squares, you find these are, say, Mehergarh, then Bujahom, then Kaldiwa, then Mahagara, then Daujali, Hading, then Halui, Chirand, then Payampalli. So these are, that means, marked with blue colored, okay, squares. So let us turn over again in page number 18. What does this blue squares mean for? Each marks a site from where archaeologists have found evidence of early farmers and herders. Boys, these blue squares, it means that those marks, these were the site from where archaeologists have found proof, evidence means proof, of early farmers and herders. Early farmers and herders used to settle there. They found this evidence. These are found all over the subcontinent. Some of the most important ones are in the northwest. So, uh, these are found all over, that means entire country. But some of the most important ones are in the northwest. In present day Kashmir and in East and South India. So, northwest in present day Kashmir and in East and South India. To find out whether these sites were settlements of farmers and herders, scientists study evidence of plants and animal bones, in order to find out whether these sites were those sites, that means, where settlements of farmers and herders. where that means these farmers and herders used to live. So, or see, to find out this, scientists study evidences. Scientists they study proof of plants and animal bones. One of the most exciting finds includes remains of burnt grain. So one of the most interestful, they find that it includes the remains, some part remain of burnt grain there. These may have been burnt accidentally or on purpose. So that food, that grain, it may have burned accidentally or on purpose. Scientists can identify these grains, and so we know that a number of crops were grown in different parts of the subcontinent. They can also identify the bones of different animals. The scientists they can also identify the bones of different types of animals. That's up to here for today, all of you. See you again in the next class. Thank you all.